Snow had begun to fall on Willow Creek. It came not in flurries or storm, but like a soft memory, settling on rooftops, dusting the streets, and making everything a little quieter, like the world had paused to take a breath. 70-year-old Elliot Hayes didn't notice the beauty of it. Not anymore. He walked with a slight stoop, hands deep in his coat pockets, his steps slow and deliberate. The wind slipped beneath his scarf, but he didn't shiver. Cold no longer registered the same way since Ruth died. His daughter had been his heartbeat. After Martha passed a decade ago, it was Ruth who brought warmth back into his home. Sunday dinners, laughter in the kitchen, her bads singing while folding laundry. Then, just like that, she was gone. A hit and run on a rainy evening. One mistake by someone who didn't even stop. The house had fallen silent after the funeral. Elliot had let the garden wither. He spoke to no one unless necessary. Some days, he sat on the porch just to listen to the wind, wondering, "Why am I still here?" He didn't know what brought him to Willow Creek Animal Shelter that morning. Maybe it was the warmth he imagined behind the windows. Maybe it was the noise, the life, or maybe it was the need to feel something, anything, besides the endless ache in his chest. Inside, the shelter buzzed with motion. Puppies barked and spun in circles. Cats stretched and yawned in their crates. Volunteers smiled warmly, one of them offering a nod and a "Good morning, sir." Elliot wandered down the hallway, passing the chaos. Most animals pressed eagerly against the glass, vying for attention. But one kennel was still. A German shepherd, old like him, sat in the corner. His coat was faded, his eyes wise. He didn't whimper or bark. He simply looked at Elliot, and in that look was a quiet understanding. Drawn closer, Elliot squinted at the dog's tarnished brass tag. The letters were worn by time and weather, but he could just make out the inscription. "If you're reading this, I was loved once." Something inside Elliot cracked. The volunteer appeared beside him. "That's Max," she said softly. "We think he's about 11. He's been here a few months. Found wandering near the woods. No chip. No one's come for him." "Does he do anything?" "He just sort of exists," she admitted. "Doesn't bark. Doesn't play. He's gentle, but distant." "I'll take him," Elliot said, voice firmer than it had been in months. The volunteer blinked. "Are you sure?" "He's not exactly. I'm sure." Max didn't bark on the drive home. He sat upright in the passenger seat, watching the snow fall with the calmness of a monk. At home, he padded silently through each room, sniffing corners, circling rugs, then settling near Ruth's old armchair. Elliot stood watching him. The house, always so hollow, suddenly felt occupied. That first night, Max lay on the rug beside the fireplace, eyes open, chest rising and falling in rhythm with the crackling wood. Elliot sat in the armchair and sipped tea he hadn't brewed in weeks. No words passed between them, but silence, for once, didn't feel so empty. In the days that followed, they settled into a rhythm. Max never barked, never whined. He didn't chase balls or leap for treats, but he followed Elliot from room to room, lay by the door when he showered, waited beside him in the kitchen, slept near his feet as he read Ruth's old books. Elliot began talking, not to Max but around him. "Ruth used to burn toast," he said one morning, standing at the stove. "She'd blame the toaster, but I think she just got distracted dancing to her jazz records." Max blinked slowly, still listening. Christmas was her favorite. She used to hang socks for the neighbor's cat. Max sighed softly, his tail giving one lazy thump against the rug. It was a week before Elliot took him to the park. The air was sharp with winter, but the sun filtered warmly through the branches. Elliot walked slower than most, his cane tapping softly on the gravel path. Max padded beside him, perfectly in step. They passed joggers and bundled-up kids throwing snowballs. At a bench near the duck pond, Elliot stopped to sit, watching the water ripple beneath the ice. Max sat quietly. A few minutes passed. Then Elliot noticed a boy across the pond. The child was alone, maybe 9 or 10, pale, wide-eyed, and sitting rigidly on the bench with his knees pulled up to his chest. His clothes were clean but oversized. There was something about him, like he was holding his breath from the inside out. Max stood. Elliot turned to say something, but the dog was already moving slow, deliberate steps across the path. The boy saw him and flinched, but Max didn't rush. He simply approached and sat a few feet away waiting. The boy stared. Minutes passed. Then, hesitantly, his hand trembling, the boy reached out and touched Max's ear. Max leaned in. Elliot watched, stunned, as the boy's posture softened. His shoulders dropped. His breathing evened out. The mother arrived moments later, panic in her eyes, until she saw the scene. "Leo," she said, rushing forward. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up. "He's not scary, Mom. He's soft." She stared at Max, then at Elliot, and nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. Word got around. The librarian called the next week. "We heard what happened in the park," she said. "Would Max be willing to visit our reading circle for shy or anxious kids?" Elliot blinked. "He doesn't really do tricks." "We don't need tricks. We need presence." So Max went to the library. Every Thursday, children sat in a half-circle, books in their laps. Max would lie on a soft blanket in the center. One by one, they read aloud. Some stammered. Others whispered. A few were silent at first. But Max never moved, never judged. He listened, and the children grew braver. One snowy evening, Elliot sat by the fire, the brass tag in his palm. He turned it over. The front still read, "If you're reading this, I was loved once." But there, on the back, were faint initials etched by hand, J.C. His heart thudded. Who had loved Max before? The initials on the tag wouldn't leave Elliot alone. J.C. He stared at them for days, running his thumb over the metal like it could whisper a memory back to life. Who had Max belonged to? Who had loved him enough to leave behind those words? That night, Elliot pulled out Ruth's old laptop. It was dusty, but it still worked. He opened a search tab and typed, "Lost German Shepherd Willow Creek J.C." At first, there was nothing. Then, an article from 3 years ago popped up on a local paper's archived site. "Family dog missing after tragic loss." A photo accompanied it, of a younger Max, tongue lolling out, standing beside a teenage boy. The boy's name was Peter Caldwell. He had died in a hiking accident. His dog, Charlie, vanished 2 days later and never returned. The article mentioned the father's name, Joseph Caldwell, living in a town just over the ridge, Brook Hollow. Elliot's heart thudded against his ribs. Was Max? Charlie? He stared at the tag again, now with a sense of awe. This wasn't just about loss. This was about someone else's love that had once burned bright. He couldn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark, Max resting at his feet. Elliot spoke softly. "I think I found your name," he said. "Charlie, you were someone's everything, weren't you?" Max stirred slightly. His tail brushed against Elliot's boot. "I think it's time to go for a ride." The drive to Brook Hollow took an hour. Elliot clutched the address he'd copied from a town records clerk. A white farmhouse appeared behind a line of maple trees. It was quiet, weather-worn. He pulled into the gravel driveway, heart thudding in his ears. An elderly man stepped out onto the porch. He looked older than Elliot had imagined, tall, thin, a cane leaning beside him. His eyes were sharp but tired. "Can I help you?" the man asked. Elliot held out the tag. "Are you Joseph Caldwell?" "I am." "This might sound strange," Elliot said, "but I think I've been living with your dog." Joseph blinked. Elliot stepped aside. Max stood beside him, staring at the porch. The moment stretched. Joseph's breath caught. He stepped down the stairs slowly, one hand trembling. "Charlie," he whispered. Max's ears perked. His tail gave one slow wag. Joseph dropped to one knee. "Charlie," he said again louder. The old dog stepped forward, slowly, then faster. Then he pressed his head into the man's chest, and Joseph broke. He wept. No holding back, no shame. His hands gripped the dog's shoulders like lifelines. "I thought you were gone forever." They sat together on the porch, the afternoon sun washing everything in gold. Max, Charlie, lay stretched between the two men, his head in Joseph's lap. "I lost Peter," Joseph said quietly. "He was only 20. The mountain took him." He paused, stroking Charlie's fur. They were inseparable. Peter trained Charlie himself. After the funeral, Charlie disappeared. I searched the woods for days, put up flyers. I hoped he'd come home. Elliot nodded slowly. He did. Just not right away. He told Joseph everything. The park, the library, the way Max had pulled him out of his grief with nothing more than quiet loyalty. Joseph listened, eyes glassy. "He's been healing you too," he said. Elliot smiled faintly. "More than I can explain." That night, Elliot and Max stayed in the guest room. In the quiet of the farmhouse, Elliot watched Max sleep, his breathing slow, content. "You remember him," Elliot whispered. Max opened one eye, then closed it again. Elliot sat on the edge of the bed and sighed. "You're home, aren't you?" The next morning, Elliot sat at the breakfast table with a mug of coffee. Joseph joined him, his steps slow but sure. "You don't have to leave him," Joseph said. "I know," Elliot replied. "But you're going to." Elliot nodded. "He belongs here. He loved you once. You both lost someone. Now maybe you can find pieces of him in each other again." Joseph looked away, tears rising. "I'll visit," Elliot added. "You'd better." They shook hands. Then Elliot leaned down and pressed his forehead to Max's. "Thank you," he whispered, "for finding me when I was lost." Max licked his hand once, then padded back to Joseph's side. Elliot drove back alone. The seat beside him felt impossibly empty. He kept his hand resting there anyway, like Max might still be sitting quietly, watching the trees roll by. That night, the house was quieter than ever. But Elliot didn't feel hollow, just changed. He walked to the park the next morning and found Leo sitting on the same bench. "Where's Max?" the boy asked. "He went home," Elliot said softly, "to someone who needed him." Leo looked down. Elliot smiled. "But I'm still here, and I have plenty of stories." Weeks passed. The library invited Elliot to read stories at circle time. Even without Max, the children still came. Some still stumbled over words, but now they had Elliot's steady voice to guide them. Leo visited often. They built birdhouses, played chess, planted bulbs in the half-forgotten garden. Spring came. Elliot returned to the shelter one day. He'd had a brass plaque made. He fastened it just above the kennel where he first found Max. "If you're reading this, I was loved once." He stepped back, watched the light catch on the letters. Then he added, almost to himself, "And I loved back." Memo epilogue. Joseph sent letters every month. "Charlie loves the porch swing again," one read. "Found him curled up with Peter's old sweatshirt. He follows me everywhere. Like he never left." The last letter came on a summer morning. "Charlie passed peacefully last night. He waited for me to sit in Peter's chair. Then he rested his head on my knee, just like he did the first day he came home. Thank you, Elliot, for bringing him back. You gave us both a chance to heal." Elliot cried. Then he walked to the park, sat on his bench, closed his eyes, and let the warm breeze fill the space Max once filled. It wasn't the same. But it wasn't empty either. You brought him home. No, Elliot said. He brought me here.